Jim Jordan's with us now. Jim, I appreciate you coming on with us.
You bet.
You went through some of those fires with me. You would come on the sports show back in the day. You're a huge sports fan.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible that not one single person who works at ESPN has ever said, "Hey, I'm voting for Trump" publicly?
No, that's today's sports world, today's media world. I think what's interesting too is it's sticking with a sports analogy is I think we're now getting past the pep rally stage and we're getting into the game. You know, for 37, 38 days, it's been one giant pep rally, all kicks and giggles. But I learned a long time ago in the sport I was involved in, the pep rally is great, but at some point you got to step on the mat and you got to prove it.
Yep.
And now it's time to get to the facts and the issues, and we got this debate, and we'll see what happens there. I have a pretty good feeling that President Trump, who does great in these debates, and J.D. Vance are going to win when they go up against the Vice President and Governor Walz.
I agree with you. And let me give you some credit here. You and I believe, met for the first time in 2021 in person when I came and spoke at a subcommittee hearing.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah, it was fun, but it was important, too, dealing with the way that Facebook can rig traffic. And I don't know how well you remember that, but I certainly remember it well because I lived it with my business. We wrote a bunch of positive things about Donald Trump after he came on my show, and our site traffic vanished on Facebook. And it was an algorithmic move. They punished us for writing too positively about Trump. And what we're now saying, I got to give you immense credit here. The letter that Mark Zuckerberg wrote to you that came out, Monday afternoon, is one of the most jaw-dropping admissions that I have ever seen anyone in big tech make. And it was so incredible that the New York Times is pretending it doesn't exist. I was talking to my audience earlier. I read the New York Times this morning. I read it yesterday, print edition of the newspaper delivered to my house. They don't have a single article about Zuckerberg admitting that he was lied to by the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop or about the censorship attempts from the Biden White House. So my question, first of all, incredible work by you to get that letter written. Why did Mark Zuckerberg write it now? What do you think his motivations were?
Well, because we've deposed over a dozen Facebook employees. We've had a 1.5-year investigation. We've deposed or interviewed line-level people all the way up to Sir Nick Clegg, the number 3 guy, former Deputy Prime Minister, Great Britain, number 3 guy at Meta. And I think at some point he just said, look, this needs to be over with. We're just going to come clean and state the facts. And in that letter, there were 4 key things he pointed out. 1, Biden-Harris administration pressured Facebook to censor. 2, they did censor. 3, they throttled back the Hunter Biden laptop story. And then the 4th big point, which I think is really important as well, he said, no more Zuckerbucks, no more spending on these elections like we did back in 2020. So, but I think the reason they did it is because our team, and it wasn't just, it was our committee, it was our staff. We worked hard on this over the last year. And God bless Elon Musk, who came forward and provided sort of the catalyst for this with the Twitter files, because then it was the Facebook files, the YouTube files, all this stuff we did. But specifically with Meta, it was, we deposed over a dozen people. They saw, we have the transcripts that point all this out, how government was working with them. And I think he just said, let's just put it in a letter and hopefully get this thing over with.
FBI got the Hunter Biden laptop in December of 2019. They were telling Twitter and Facebook in the late fall, right before the 2020 election, that they thought this was going to be Russian disinformation.
Yeah.
Congressman, are we ever going to know who ordered that code red inside of our government? And here's what I'm troubled by. I mean, one, that rigged the election. I think you would probably agree with it. Because if the truth had come out about the Hunter Biden laptop and Joe Biden's involvement and all the different foreign millions of dollars pouring into the family, Trump would have won. So I do think they rigged the election there just based on that individual story. But if that person or those individuals did that in 2020, why wouldn't they try something similar in 2024?
Well, that's why the timing of this, I think, is also important, because we don't know what they may be up to now. You're right. That came out on October 14th, the New York Post story. I mean, we're just, 20-some days before the most important election we have for, President of the United States. And they had pre-bunked it all along. I mean, Schellenberger writes about this in the Twitter files, Taibbi, the whole thing. So they had pre-bunked this. But one of the guys we did interview was a guy named Brady Olson with the FBI. And he told us that there was a meeting the day the New York Post story comes out. Our government just happened to be meeting with big tech companies. In the meeting with Twitter, someone from Twitter asked, hey, is this true, this story? Because it didn't jive with what our government had been telling them the whole summer and early fall. And they said, is this true? and someone said the laptop's real. That was quickly followed up by another individual from the Justice Department says no further comment. And then they got their story straight, and they put out a statement to all tech companies basically saying, we have the laptop, and we're not going to say one way or the other. But initially, someone spilled the beans, and then they quickly tried to say, oh, no, we're not going to talk about that. And that's exactly what they did. So, yeah, they pre-bunked it, and then when it happened, that's why Facebook and Twitter and these folks kind of did the censoring that they did of the laptop story. And as you and I believe, that had an impact on the election, probably when you're talking about such a small margin for Joe Biden, probably changed the course of the election.
I think Trump would be in office. I don't think Ukraine would have gotten invaded. I don't think that Hamas would have done what they did on October 7th. Certainly, we wouldn't have let over 10 million people into the nation. Inflation wouldn't have gone from 1.4% to 9%. All of those things, Jim, I think are a direct result of the lies that were told from inside our government to the big tech companies. And I know this. I don't know what your personal relationship is like, if any, with Mark Zuckerberg. But I've said on this show, and I know you listen, so you may have heard it, but it's easy to focus on the Zuckerbergs and the Jack Dorseys of the world at Twitter. But if the FBI comes to you and says that Russian disinformation is coming, and then a version of that comes out, it's natural for them to have believed that it was Russian disinformation. A lot of the blame shifting on them, to me, should instead be back on our intelligence agents and our interior government for what they did, not the tech guys.
No, exactly right. And the biggest problem is government pressuring them. That's the real censor. Now, they succumbed to it, and it wasn't just the laptop. Remember, they censored other things as well. And remember this. You had a tweet last week that I thought was so good about RFK, what he said about President Trump and his endorsement. He made the same statement in front of our committee because I invited him in as a witness a year ago, and he said the same thing. He said, the people who censor usually aren't the good guys in history. And I'm paraphrasing. He said it better than that. But he said that in our hearing as well, because he came in. And the reason he is so fired up about President Trump is this censorship industrial complex, as Taibbi and Schellenberger have called it, because they went after him on day 3 of the Biden-Harris regime. There's an email from Clark Humphrey to Twitter saying, take down this tweet ASAP. Clark Humphrey working at the White House. Take down this tweet ASAP. And it was a tweet from RFK Jr. where he said, Hank Aaron took the vaccine. Hank Aaron passed away after taking it. He was doing so to encourage black Americans to get vaccinated. There's not one false statement in that tweet. And yet they wanted him to take it down because they didn't like what it was conveying. They didn't like the context. This was malinformation baloney that our government was involved in. So this is big stuff when our government is pressuring people to censor, because as RFK Jr. said, and you tweeted about it, the good guys in history aren't the ones who are on the censorship side.
Jim, when you look at the way that the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, the usual suspects, CNN, MSNBC, the way they covered a few ad buys by Russia on Facebook, which in the grand scheme of things is completely inconsequential. And I'm saying that as a media figure who's run a media company. We bought a lot of Facebook ads over the years. You have to spend millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions in order for your message to really get out. Russia was testing and spending a few $100s, maybe $1,000 here and there. It was covered as if those ad buys put Trump in the White House in 2016. We spent years on that allegation.
Yeah.
Given what Mark Zuckerberg just admitted to, how wild is it if you compare the amount of attention given to that 2016 tiny ad buy with the censorship and also with the government briefings that led to the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story?
Not even close. Not even close. And this is just part of it. Remember, 3 weeks ago, I guess 2.5 weeks ago, this organization, GARM, discontinues operation. And this all stemmed from us doing an investigation. Basically, it really started when I was in a meeting with Speaker McCarthy and Elon Musk. And I remember Elon Musk, we were talking about GARM, and he said, GARM is on. And he was so right. We dug into this, but it is so broad, and yet they made a big deal out of a few, Russian bots doing, whatever they were doing, and something clear back in 2016. And it was nothing compared to what they're doing to what they did to you at Outkick, what they did to Fox News, the Federalist, what they did to the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. We had Ben Shapiro in and testified about a month and a half ago, and as a result of that hearing, Group M, the big advertiser, they fired their guy. This is all part of this GARM and everything else was going on. So yeah, this is so much bigger. But as you point out, the mainstream, the big media doesn't really want to cover it.
You're doing the Lord's work here. It's truly incredible to see it all stacked together and how important it is to fight this censorship industrial complex inside of big tech. You talk to President Trump all the time. How often? I know you know J.D. Vance well because he's from Ohio, where you are a congressman. How optimistic are you about what you are seeing as we get close to Labor Day weekend and the official kickoff in many ways of the election season? What do you expect to see? What is the president telling you? What should our audience know based on your overview of the election?
Look, I listen to you, and I think you've nailed it. I'm optimistic like you are. I think it is EBC, economy, border, crime. I think we're now getting past the pep rally. She and Tim Walz are going to do the Vice President Tim Walz are going to do an interview. They're going to have debates. There's a big difference between playing the game and having the pep rally. I know at the pep rally everyone's undefeated, but you got to when we get to the facts. Think about it. In 4 years' time, we went from a secure border to no border. They just made the border czar their nominee. We went from safe streets to record crime. They made the lady who was saying, let's bail out the rioters in 2020. They made her the nominee. We went from $2 gas to $4 gas. They made the person who said, I'm against fracking as their nominee. And we went from stable prices to record inflation. And the lady who was for the inflation, so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which actually caused inflation, voted for that. So that's their nominee. You can't run from the facts and the issues. And at some point, we're going to get to that. I think it'll probably start at the debate on the 10th. But I feel good about it. And the polling numbers, while they're close in the 7 swing states, they're much better now than they were with Biden and with Clinton. So I feel good. I feel like the country's going to say, no, we want to go back to the good policies we had under President Trump.
Congressman, keep up the good work. Look forward to meeting with you in person again at some point. And anytime you want to come on, just let us know.
All right. Thanks, Clay. Take care, guys.
Will do. That's Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, really doing incredible work as it pertains to the impact of big tech censorship and more. The letter that Mark Zuckerberg wrote addressed to him, seismic in importance that we have spent a lot of time talking on. It would not have happened without the work of he, his committee, and his staff. Look, right now it's the end of the summer. I am headed down on Friday evening to go to the beach. Last trip to the beach with my family before the fall officially gets underway. Going to take a bunch of pictures, probably going to relive a lot of memories we've been having with our family. I bet a lot of you are going to do the same as you get ready for this Labor Day weekend. You're going to go out to the lake. You're going to have barbecues. You're going to hang out with your friends, your family, people that you hold and cherish the most. How many times have you done that in the past? And how many of those memories that you created on those days, the end of summer, during the course of the summer, are old photos, old family VHS tapes, old reels? Now's the time to preserve those forever in a digital fashion. That's what Legacy Box does. Down in my mom's hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I spent a lot of time over the years, these guys do a phenomenal job of preserving your family memories forever. And right now, they're offering 55% off their regular prices, making the project all the more attractive. Think of the hours of entertainment in your family's future and just preserving your family's history and what that can mean at legacybox.com/Clay for half off regular prices. That's legacybox.com/Clay, 55% off. Summer's coming to an end, but make sure that you preserve your summer memories forever at legacybox.com/Clay for 55% off.